When I was in seminary, our exams were what we would call oral exams, which is to say that we'd go to class for an entire semester, and then our whole grade, the whole grade, would be based on one 10 to 15-minute oral exam that you would sit down face to face with the professor. And I guess to that point in my life, I had really never knew that level of anxiety. And while it may be wonderful to think that the professors that teach in seminary are kind and gracious and loving, they're not. At least not all of them. And so we would line up in a hallway outside the offices where the professors would give the exams, and which they would give in 5 different languages. So you could take the exam in English, Italian, Spanish, French, German, and sometimes even Portuguese and Latin if you wanted to brush up on your conversational Latin. Needless to say, I chose English. So we were already kind of intimidated by the fact that the person we were sitting down with spoke at least 5 languages, and then we had to cover the entire semester. So we had a class on the Old Testament. What did we have to know for the Old Testament? The whole Old Testament. The whole thing. It's kind of one thing to fail so-called anonymously with a written exam. It's a whole level of humiliation when you fail in front of your professor face to face. So I remember sitting one day in the hallway waiting for my exam, and out comes a friend of mine who is now a priest in San Diego, and he has this look of shell shock on his face after his exam, not that different from what I see actors portray like soldiers from World War I. And knowing I was next, I frantically asked him questions like, "How was it? What did she ask you? What did you say?" And all he could get out before the intimidating Spanish nun called out "next" from the office was, I don't know." "Well, did you pass?" "I don't know." He wasn't a lot of help. So those experiences of those exams are very much on my mind as I think about the gospel. I'd watch my classmates who had already taken their exams come back from sitting down face to face with the professor, and I would look at them knowing that they had already gone through what I had to go through. And they somehow survived, and as much as I didn't want to do it, I knew I had to do it. But somehow, the only way of getting out of seminary was either to quit or to take that exam. Jesus is the good teacher, the best of teachers. And thankfully, he never yells at us. But he's trying to tell each and every one of us what's going to happen when, if not if, at the end of your life and mine, we stand face to face in front of him. We begin the month of November praying for our beloved dead, and we end this month by thinking about our own death. And the reality for us as a parish family is that there are roughly 18 or so people who were here this day last year hearing the gospel, or hearing the solemnity, if not this gospel. Brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, aunts, mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, friends for whom this has happened. They have experienced judgment. And Jesus is telling us that is going to happen for us. And he doesn't tell us this to scare us. He tells it to just simply prepare us. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't reflect on the words of the gospel for us today. And so it seems to me that there are 3 things that we should ask as we reflect on these incredibly sober words from Jesus. First, what is it that we're supposed to do? Second, why are we supposed to do it? And third, what happens if we don't? So first, what are we to do? The answer is pretty obvious. Just reread the gospel. You and I are called to do what is traditionally called in the Catholic Church is to practice the corporal works of mercy, to feed the hungry, give shelter to the homeless, to clothe the naked, to give drink to the thirsty, to visit the sick and the imprisoned. In other words, you and I are told by the Lord to love, which doesn't mean think nice thoughts necessarily, but to do good things. That's the obvious part. Why are we to do it? Well, this part isn't always that obvious. I'm not to do it so I don't go to hell. I'm to do it so that the love of Jesus, his thirst, flows through me, consumes me, becomes such a part of my life that his thirst becomes my thirst. His thirst for others, his thirst to reach out to those who are lost, reach out to those who are strangers, reach out to those who are hungry or poor, alone or in prison or sick. That's the first reason as to why. But the second reason as to why is to see that, as Mother Teresa would say, in reaching out to these people, we are satisfying his thirst. Because the truth is, as he makes abundantly clear in the gospel today, whenever I see anybody, or you see anybody, especially those who are hungry or naked, homeless, in prison, sick, we see him. And so we want to satisfy his thirst, mindful that, in fact, that Jesus, sitting there, standing there, no matter his distressing disguise, or as Mother Teresa would call it, that annoying costume, whenever I see anybody, I see him. At least I'm supposed to. So we are to love. We're to love because we want his love to flow through us, and also because we want to satisfy the love of all those, or the hunger for the love of all those we see. But here's the third and perhaps most important point. What happens if you and I don't do this? People ask me if I believe in hell. It doesn't really matter if I believe in hell. It matters whether hell is real. I can believe in the world all I want that is flat, but it doesn't change the reality that the world is not flat. I can believe all I want that hell is not real, doesn't change the reality of whether or not it is. And Jesus makes abundantly clear in the gospel that hell is real. But know this, hear what he said. Depart from me, you accursed, into the eternal fire prepared for whom? For the devil and his angels. That is to say, not for us. It wasn't made for us. There is no person who was made to go to hell. In the book of Revelation, in the final book of Scriptures, when John sees this vision at the end of time, Jesus says to John in one of those beautiful passages, to the person who overcomes, to the person who perseveres, to the person who hangs in, the person who's concerned with my thirst and lets my thirst flow through him or her and on to others, is the person who lives life well, who responds to faith by the fact of surrendering their life to me. To that person, I will never erase their name from the book of life. Which is to say what? It's to say that at the beginning of time, every single one of our names was written in the book of life. That's how it started. But Jesus is saying, as long as you live well, as long as you respond to what I've done for you, by my life, death, resurrection, so long as you surrender your life to me, so long as you truly make your life a life of love, then I'll never what? Erase it from that book. But if you don't respond, if you don't surrender your life, if you don't love, then know this. It will be erased. Because I will give you what you wanted. Namely, to be apart from me. Because that's how you've lived. If that doesn't terrify you, I would suggest we haven't really heard the gospel. And I don't mean terrify in the sense of making us scared. I mean terrify in the sense of making us tremble. When I was in seminary, I could just leave if I didn't want to go through the exams. I could quit. I can't quit life. With all of those who I have buried, have gone through, I will one day go through. I'll have to stand in front of Jesus. And you and I, all together, will either hear him say, come, or go. So what are we to do? Some weeks the answer isn't so easy. This week it's really easy. I would suggest we reread the gospel. And perhaps especially at this time of year, many of us are starting to make Christmas lists. Gifts we want to buy, things we want to get for people we love, who in reality, as important it is to show our love, probably don't need anything. We might want to make another list, I would suggest. My Christmas list starts with the poor, the hungry, the homeless, the sick, and the imprisoned. And the key is to somehow translate this not into only a Christmas list, but into a daily list. So I can take on a new way of living. So that I can habitually understand that each and every day that the Lord is asking me to do is to love. Not in extraordinary circumstances, but in just everyday, ordinary ones. And he tells us if you and I do that, then on that very real day, when we stand face to face with Jesus, we don't have anything to be afraid of.